Ukraine to get Rusty Dagger cruise missiles from the U.S. It is Tuesday, February 3, 2026. The wait is finally over, and the skies over the Eastern Front are about to get much more crowded and, while significantly more dangerous for the occupiers. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on global security, you know what to do. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me in the latest program by Defense Report for the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover the successful live-fire combat testing of the Rusty Dagger cruise missile. This is a weapon specifically designed to break the deadlock in Ukraine. The images coming out of Eglin Air Force Base this morning are, frankly, undeniable. We're looking at the final validation of a weapon system that was little more than a concept paper less than 2 years ago.
This isn't just another aid package. This feels like industrial proof that the West has finally figured out how to scale lethality. To help us understand the nuts and bolts of this transfer and what it actually means, I'm joined by a resident defense analyst.
Good to be here. And looking at these reports, it's about time. We've all been watching the supply chain struggle to keep up. This suggests that logjam might finally be breaking.
So let's start with the event itself, January 21st, 2026. Eglin Air Force Base. We have photos of the impact. The missile, this IRAM, or Rusty Dagger, it executed a vertical dive on a static target. The blast looks consistent with a 500-pound munition.
It is a very powerful blast effect.
But the headline everyone is running with is the speed. They went from contract to live fire in 16 months.
16 months.
Brig Gen Robert Lyons III called it delivering at the speed of relevance. Is that a fair assessment? Or is that just, Pentagon marketing speak?
I mean, usually speed of relevance is just a buzzword they use to excuse a 5-year delay, right?
Right.
But in this case, no, he's actually right. 16 months for a clean sheet missile design to get to live fire validation it's just unheard of in modern US procurement. You normally spend 16 months just arguing about the font size on the requirements document.
So how did they do it? Did they cut corners on the technology?
They didn't cut corners. They stopped trying to build a Ferrari when they really just needed a Ford F-150. They used an existing warhead, an existing engine, a lot of off-the-shelf electronics. They didn't have to invent new physics. They just integrated what was already on the shelf.
That's the crash program mentality.
Exactly. Something we really haven't seen since the Cold War.
Which brings us to the nickname Rusty Dagger. It sounds crude.
It does.
But when you look at the strategic problem, Russia launching, 5,000 munitions a month back in mid-2025? Crude might be exactly what Ukraine needs. We've talked about affordable mass before, but this feels like the first time it's actually real.
It is real, but we should be careful with that crude label, because affordable doesn't mean stupid. The strategic problem for the last few years has been simple economics. The West gave Ukraine Storm Shadow's scalps.
The exquisite stuff.
The exquisite missiles, yeah. They are brilliant, they're stealthy, and they cost over $2 million a pop. You can't fire a $2 million missile at a warehouse full of winter boots. You run out of money before the enemy runs out of boots.
Right, and you definitely can't afford to just suppress air defense with them.
Exactly. So enter the ERAM. The price point is sitting somewhere between, let's say, $220,000 and $250,000.
That's 10% of the cost of a Storm Shadow?
Roughly, yes. And that changes the firing calculus completely. A Ukrainian commander doesn't need to call a general to get permission anymore. If they see a target that's worth $300,000, they can take the shot.
Let's talk about the capabilities, though, because usually when you cut the price by 90%, you lose 90% of the performance. The original request for the Air Force was for a range of about 250 miles, so 400 kilometers. But the data coming from Zone 5 Technologies on this test shows something very different. They're hitting ranges over 500 nautical miles.
That's 900 kilometers.
900.
That range number is the single most disruptive part of this whole spec sheet. I was skeptical when I first saw the leak, but the fuel efficiency numbers, they back it up. 900 kilometers puts the entirety of occupied Ukraine, including Crimea, well within range. But more importantly, it puts the logistics hubs deep inside Russia on the target list.
The railheads, the staging grounds.
All the places that have been safe until now. They're not safe anymore.
You mentioned Zone 5 Technologies. They're the ones who developed this. But there was a massive business move back in December 2025 we need to touch on. Kongsberg.
The Norwegian giant Kongsberg Defence and Aerospace.
They bought a 90% stake in Zone 5.
And that is the signal that this is not a science project anymore. Zone 5 was a startup. Kongsberg is a titan. They build the Naval Strike Missile, they build NASAMS. When Kongsberg buys you, it means they are preparing to manufacture your product at industrial scale. They don't want to build 10 missiles a month. They want to build 1,000.
It also brings in European ownership, which I want to get to later. But first, let's drill down on navigation. We saw the GLSDB, the ground-launched small-diameter bomb, basically fail in 2024 because Russian jamming was just too intense. The GPS was fried.
It was a huge problem.
So, if the Rusty Dagger is a budget missile, isn't it going to suffer the same fate?
That was the biggest fear. But the designers learned the hard lesson from that GLSDB failure. They realized you cannot rely on GPS in the Donbas. It's a dead zone for signals. So they gave the Rusty Dagger eyes.
You mean literally? A camera?
Essentially, yes. In the brochures, they list a bunch of acronyms for it. TERCOM, DSMX. But let's just strip that away. Think of it like a hiker navigating a mountain trail. If your GPS dies, what do? You pull out a physical map. You look at the mountain peak in front of you, and you figure out where you are based on what you can see.
So it's comparing the terrain it sees to a map stored in its own hard drive?
Correct. It has an optical sensor in its nose. It looks at the ground, it matches a coastline or a river or a ridgeline to its internal database, and it corrects its course. It just does not care if the Russians are blasting 10,000 watts of noise on GPS frequencies. It's not listening, it's looking.
That seems surprisingly sophisticated for a cheap weapon.
The technology has been around since the 80s, really. It's just that now, thanks to smartphone processors, we can do it with a chip that costs $50 instead of a computer that weighs 50 pounds.
That's the affordable part of the equation.
That's it.
Okay, so it can find the target, but can we build enough of them? The State Department approved a sale of 3,350 units. The total value is almost $850 million. That's a massive order.
It's a massive order, but look at who's signing the check. It's not just the Pentagon. It's Denmark, the Netherlands, and Norway. This is a coalition purchase.
And the timeline? We've been burned by timelines before.
The official goal is a production rate of over 1,000 per year, with the first big batch arriving October 2026. But, there's a lot of chatter about pre-production units, maybe a dozen or so, already being in theater for field evaluation.
Quantity has a quality all its own.
It does, and in a war of attrition, inventory depth is the only thing that matters. If you have 3,000 missiles, you can sustain a campaign for a year. If you have 100 missiles, you have a good week and then you're done.
Let's talk about how these get into the air. We know the F-16 Vipers are the primary carrier. I've read reports that a single F-16 can carry up to 12 of these missiles. That sounds terrifying. Is it realistic?
Look, on a glossy brochure at an arms expo, sure, you can bolt 12 of them onto the wings. In the real world?
No way?
No way. It's not just the weight, it's the drag. These are 500-pound missiles, they're bulky. If you hang 12 of them on a single-engine jet like an F-16, you turn that fighter into a flying brick. Your range would plummet, you wouldn't be able to maneuver if a Russian interceptor showed up.
So what's the real number?
Realistically, 4. Maybe 6 if you're feeling brave and the target is close. But even at 4 missiles per jet, if you launch a flight of 4 F-16s, that's 16 cruise missiles inbound from one location. That is still more than enough to oversaturate a localized air defense battery. You don't need the brochure number to be effective.
That makes sense. But Ukraine doesn't just have F-16s. They still have all that Soviet metal. MiG-29s, Su-24s. Can those planes fire a NATO missile like this?
Normally, no. The electronics just don't speak the same language. It's like trying to plug a USB-C drive into a typewriter. But they've developed a workaround that is, frankly, brilliant in its simplicity. They call it the Stoker pylon, but really, it's the iPad hack.
The iPad hack?
Yeah, instead of rewiring the entire Soviet jet, which takes months, they just mount a wireless tablet in the cockpit. The pilot selects the target on the tablet talks wirelessly to the missile on the wing. The plane itself, it's a truck. The plane has no idea what the missile is doing, it just drops it when the pilot pushes the button.
That is the definition of MacGyver engineering.
It decouples the weapon from the platform. It means Ukraine can use every single plane in its inventory, not just the shiny new Western ones, to launch these strikes.
Which maximizes their launch volume immediately. I want to pivot to the targets. We established the 900-kilometer range. We established they can navigate without GPS. What are they hitting?
They go after the boring stuff that wins wars. Fuel depots, ammo dumps, repair yards. The Russians moved all that stuff back, thinking they were out of range of HIMARS and Storm Shadow. The Rusty Dagger changes that map.
And the economics work in Ukraine's favor here.
Heavily. If Russia shoots down a Rusty Dagger, they're likely using an S-300 or S-400 interceptor. Those Russian missiles cost millions. The Rusty Dagger costs $250,000. So every time Russia successfully shoots one down, they lose money. Every time they miss, they lose a fuel depot. It puts their air defense network in a lose-lose economic spiral.
Which brings us to the political elephant in the room: targeting restrictions. For years, the U.S. has told Kyiv, here are the ATACMS, but don't you dare shoot them deep into Russia.
It's been a constant break on their operations.
We've seen some loosening of that, but it's always been tentative. Does this missile change that dynamic?
I think it does. And specifically because of who's paying for it. Remember, this isn't just a US program. Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands are funding this contract.
So it's not U.S. taxpayer money directly.
Exactly. It creates a kind of diplomatic loophole. If the US gives a weapon, the US sets the rules because they don't want to be seen as escalating. But if Oslo and Copenhagen are buying the weapons from the manufacturer and handing them to Kyiv, the political responsibility shifts to Europe. And the Europeans have been much more aggressive about saying, strike where you need to strike.
So Washington can sort of wash its hands of the targeting decisions.
To an extent, they can say, hey, we just approved the export license. How the client uses it is up to them. It provides a layer of plausible deniability that allows for those deep strikes without the White House feeling like they're declaring war on Moscow.
And with a 900-kilometer range, you almost have to strike deep. If you restrict this to the front lines, you're just wasting it.
Precisely. You don't buy a marathon runner to walk to the mailbox. This weapon is designed for deep interdiction. Using it on the front line would be a tactical error.
Looking at the broader picture, the U.S. Air Force has to be watching this. They have their own programs, LACM, the Lugged Affordable Cruise Missile. It seems like Rusty Dagger is the test case for a new American philosophy.
It is. The Pentagon is looking at China. They know that in a fight in the Pacific, they will run out of the expensive missiles in about a week. They need magazine depth.
They need thousands of rounds.
Thousands. And Rusty Dagger is proving that you can build a competent, dangerous cruise missile without bankrupting the Treasury. It's a shift from exquisite and few to good enough and many. That's the future of warfare. The era of the silver bullet weapon is ending. We are moving back to industrial warfare, where the side that can produce the most tonnage of explosives and deliver it reliably wins. The Rusty Dagger is the first true child of that new doctrine.
It's a sobering thought. We focus on a high-tech wizardry, but in the end, it comes down to factory output and cost efficiency.
As it usually does.
The Rusty Dagger suggests that in 2026, the most dangerous quality of a weapon isn't its stealth or its speed, it's its price tag. If the West has figured out how to make cruise missiles cheaper than the interceptors used to kill them, the math of this war has fundamentally flipped. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your trusted source for timely, in-depth military and defense analysis. We'll see you next time. Keep supporting us so we can continue bringing you the latest developments from Ukraine and around the world.